definitely. And I think that, it's, as we kind of touched on earlier, it's interesting to see that people are saying kind of not yet. And one of my kind of thoughts behind that is the kind of, organization and kind of cultural, differences here. We have those kind of hierarchical organizational structures, where, decision making and stuff is centralized very much at the top of those structures. And also, there's kind of a piece in here as well about, Agile ultimately promotes, failing fast to succeed. And failure isn't necessarily a good thing, I suppose, in any culture to kind of be, proud of, to say, we're going to fail, but we're going to move on and we're going to change, and we're going to iterate. So, and I think particularly in the UAE and the Middle East, that kind of, perspective kind of, it isn't the same. Failing isn't a good thing to fail. So I think, the mindset change is going to be one of those things that we really need to kind of push and help educate on.
Yeah, and I think it's quite ironic actually, because we're in the UAE and like the Middle East region, and if you take UAE specifically in terms of how, like, it's a new country and how much is achieved over the last 10-15 years and how it continues to evolve and respond and, like I said, adopt new practices, adopt new technology. But then when you go down a level and go at a company level, and like Katie said, it can be very industry specific. Some industries are more open to being agile and adopting it and actually full-fledged 100% behind it. And then you've got others who are a bit more traditionalist, and again, hierarchical reasons, or just generally people are more resistant to change and they're not willing to adopt. And then you have those challenges, and maybe they are the no, not yet. But for a country that is moving so fast ahead, and even Saudi, where they're investing and progressing and want to have all this future kind of way and style of living and working, it's interesting that companies are kind of way behind on that journey. And it was good to see them kind of invest and move and think and step into that growth mindset as well.
It's really interesting that you say that, and I think it goes back to Martin's point about wanting to be agile, and one of the buzzwords that came through earlier, rather than actually doing agile and actually being agile, if you like. And I think that's kind of one of the things, one of the kind of big challenges. I don't know, Martin, if you have any more input kind of there.
Yeah, so I think that those industries and those companies that don't feel ready for agile adoption will never feel ready for agile adoption. And if they really do want to kind of move in that direction and start becoming more agile, they just have to do it, and maybe start small, and start getting that buy-in from people with that are a bit more resistant to change. By just showing, how much quicker you can kind of move and react and deliver what they need to deliver. And, slowly that will kind of change the perception and the minds of those people in that company or industry.
I've also found, on just building on that point as well, it does come down to the generations a little bit, I always find. So in environments that I've been in, or companies that I've worked in, that kind of middle management layer of people that have maybe been with an organization for quite a while and have worked in a certain way, they're really hesitant to let this change happen. And, I understand why, because it's a different skill set. People are worried about, will they be made redundant because their skills are no longer valid? And, and people are just really wary of change. I think it is just about educating people on, this isn't replacing somebody, it's just a different mindset. And actually, if people are open to learning these new skills, their career will flourish, and they'll be in a job for a lot longer, because this is the way that the world's kind of moving for product development. So it's about making sure that you understand, I think, people's personal needs as well as the business need, and really getting people in the boat with you. And if people aren't in the boat, and those crucial people aren't in the boat, then it will never happen, because everybody needs to be in the boat for this to work. So I think it's a real kind of education piece, and it's especially at the beginning of a transformation, I find it's trying to understand what people's needs are, what they're scared of, and trying to kind of validate those for them, and making them excited about how much better things could be, and ultimately doing the best for their customer. I think it's a people thing again.
Definitely. and building kind of on that people thing, I just, kind of going back to, I myself have been in the region in Dubai for the past 6 to 7 years, but, very kind of early within my journey into Dubai, the types of roles that were available, weren't necessarily agile or product roles. So, now we've seen, the kind of industry move, you kind of fast forward 8 years kind of ahead, we've got kind of all the roles that are there now. There's Scrum Master, Agile coaches, there's product roles, head of product, so that's happening and it's there. And the only thing that I would say about that is I think that some of those roles mean different things to different people. There isn't necessarily a consistent kind of thing across there, but it's starting to happen, and people are starting to recognize the need for these roles to move into that more kind of agile space, which I think is really, really positive for the region.
But also, I wonder, if those people that are deeply entrenched in like the non-agile kind of project management, if they're happy with the way that they're kind of doing what they're doing, or if they have, a long list of complaints about it. And so I think, the writing's on the wall. They want to kind of move, but, as Katie said, they're scared of the change and what it actually means for them and their role.
Sorry, Josh, I think a lot of it as well comes down to like security, doesn't it? So a lot of the difference with people's perception of agile is, we looked at it a bit earlier, and it's like unstructured, and with that comes things like documentation, right? And I think people often think that agile projects or agile processes don't have any documentation and are kind of a bit like, oh yeah, we'll just go through a sprint and see what comes out at the end of it. But actually, again, I would argue that it's the opposite. And actually, in agile, if you're working properly and you're utilizing the tools to do the job, you have above and beyond the documentation that you could have with a project management, a traditional, more waterfall or project that was working in that way. So it's about, again, utilizing the tools and people understanding that documentation to make people feel secure that they've got what they need to report back up to investors or CEOs or clients as well.